Can't be quiet. We'll put you to detention. No. All right. So we've got the pleasure of having Blaine Olson speak with us tonight. Pro tips for property inspections. Come on up, Blaine. We'll get this thing started.
Thank you.
Oh, shoot. I already messed up. All right. Here we go.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Just real quick, kind of a quick bio, where I came from, my background, what got me to where I am today. First thing is, I'm born and raised right here in New Orleans, right across the lake, grew up. And one of the stories that I look back to over the course of my life, my parents divorced when I was young. And when I got in, especially my teenage years, anytime that I needed money, didn't matter if it was $30, $300, school, cleats, sports stuff, whatever, my mom would say, call your dad, he owes you money. And so I'd call him up and say, hey, Dad, I need money for this, I need money for that. And he'd always say the same thing. What are you doing Saturday? And of course, teenager, nothing. And he'd say, all right, I'm working a side job. He might be remodeling a bathroom or working with, there was a contractor he would work with to make extra money. And he'd say, come help me, and I'll give you whatever money you need. So he made me earn it. So that's where I really learned construction, learned how to read a tape measure, carry tools, sand till your arms want to fall off. And but it became a passion, something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed building, creating, fixing, doing those things. And so when I went off to college, I got a degree in Christian studies. My plan at that point was I just wanted to be a pastor of a church. My heart, deep inside, like what makes me tick is I want to help people. I care for people. And it's that care, that pastor type heart that I want to help people not just live in a house, but make a house their home. If I'm building it from scratch or remodeling it, we've done that, my wife and I, she's here today, and we have lived in so many places and moved around, and a lot of the work we've done for ourselves, and that's how you learn. You do it yourself, and then you learn. So I brought that passion and idea when I graduated college. I realized that I love working for churches, but I couldn't make enough money just working for a church to support my family. And that's where the first time I had a dream or an idea of having a contractor's license, building. And that led to, I don't know how to build a house. So I started different trades. I started with a trim carpenter, learned how to build cabinets, and then worked for a commercial flooring company. Then I worked for a framer, and I learned how to frame, and I learned all the various aspects over many years. I sold building materials for 84 Lumber, went through all of these different things, and I've learned every aspect. And then when we were buying a house in Slidell in 2007, my cousin was a real estate agent helping us buy the house. She had told me, it was the first time she had mentioned, she said, Blaine, I think you would make a great home inspector. You ought to look into that. And I thought about it. I was like, man, this would be great. I really love every aspect of construction and remodeling and how things were put together. And so when I looked into it, it's very difficult to get into that industry. You almost have to be invited. It's not like you can just go pass a test and then start marketing. It's difficult. And I couldn't find anybody willing to train me in that industry. And then when we were selling our house, when my daughter was graduating high school, we listed the house for sale. The home inspector came by, and my wife was home, and she had helped build every aspect of that house. I mean, she was hands-on. And he was asking her questions about, do you know where the air condition is? Do you know where the sub panels are? And she's like, oh yeah, sub panels. We have 5 of them, and I could tell you where all of them are. And he was so blown away. He was like, whoa, wait a minute. You know so much about the construction of this house. And so she told the story. And he looked at her and said, I want to hire you. I want to hire you as a home inspector. And then, of course, she said, well, if you like me, you really ought to meet my husband. And so we work for Johnny Joyner. He's a franchise owner for House Call Home Inspection. And our franchise is in Mississippi. I just want to let everyone know, I know it's going out on the internet. So I am not here to market house call or home inspections in the St. Tammany Parish. That is not our market. So I'm just here to talk about just general information about home inspections, just to help you guys as investors make a plan when you decide to purchase a property. What are some things that you can look for, red flags, before you get too deep into the woods with your offer? And so that's why I'm here tonight. That's what brought me here. And so I look forward to it. And Brett is going to turn it over to a interview style.
Yeah, and I think we're going to just go right in on this first question here. What should we expect when we're inspecting a property?
All right, so for me, when I do a home inspection, I have a routine. And one of the main reason why I have a routine is because if I do the same thing over every time, I'm less likely to skip or forget something. These days, cell phone, if you have in your pocket, this is what I do. This is my number one tool, is my cell phone. The app is on here. I take pictures. I compile the whole report. And at the end of the report, I can review it from my phone and send it out to the clients at the end. Other than that, I do bring a few other hand tools to test various things. But the number one thing I do when I get to any house is, the first thing is I go up on the roof, especially if weather permitting. I'd like to start on the roof, get the outside done. I'll make a complete loop around. If I'm walking around and I come across various things like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, I will go back and forth in my app, but I don't like to go back and forth with my feet. So I make a rotation outside, then I do inside. If it's a crawl space or an attic, I save those two for last. But if you have ever had an insurance company ask for a 4-point home inspection, I never even heard of those until after I got my license in the home inspecting industry. And the 4 points that insurance companies care about the most are going to be the roof, the electrical, the HVAC, and the plumbing. And so those are going to be the most important things. So when I'm inspecting any property, whether it's a small single family or a duplex or a large family home with multiple units on the property, the roof is going to be the top priority on that.
So roof, your major expenses. So I always say, like, your big ticket items, your HVAC, your roof, your plumbing, your electrical. Those are where going to cost you the most money when you have to repair or rebuild.
One other thing I tell most of my clients, especially my lady friends, and that's what I tell them. I say, look, especially to my lady friends, I really don't do anything cosmetic. I can if you want me to. If you're my client and you want me to put cosmetic things in the report, I'll be happy to help anyone. If you're paying me to do a report, you want something in there, I'll get it for you. But I tell my lady friends that your eyes are better than mine when it comes to cosmetic stuff. And a roll of blue painter's tape is perfect when you're going through the house. If you see something you want done, that way the seller or the contractor, if it's a new construction, they can go through and they can adjust any of the cosmetic issues. But for a licensed home inspection, it's mostly function.
Function. Okay. Let's see. I think we got. What tools should we bring to an inspection?
Yes. So the tools, my phone is the main tool. I have an outlet tester that we go and just make sure that the outlets are wired properly with a simple test. Form and function, according to the standards of practice that we use, you're supposed to be able to operate any device mechanical with normal operating controls, is basically the verbiage that they use. So a light switch, if I turn a light switch on and the light doesn't come on, it's a malfunction in light, and I don't know why. The recommendation is call an electrician, have them investigate why the light doesn't come on. It's just a function. So we test outlets, and then I carry screwdrivers to open electrical panels, because we will look inside electrical panels, inside of the HVAC units, and so forth.
Okay. So a lot of this stuff, if you're not going into the home inspecting industry and you're just going into this house looking for yourself, these are things, I look at houses a lot, and these are things that I do test sometimes when I'm questioning it. So if I click a light switch on, I'll notate, like, okay, the light's not working, might be a bulb or something like that, could be something easy. But then again, like, if another switch doesn't work, maybe there's a main electrical circuit breakdown somewhere that would need to be looked at.
Oh, yes, and also a temperature gun. That's how we test the effectiveness of the HVAC system for heat and for cold.
you kind of went over this. You do have
Yes.
an order. So you do walk around the outside and then the inside. I would say for myself, when I'm looking at a property, when I walk in the house, I have an order to where I go the baseboard to the corner of the room,
Yes.
to the top of, and I'm looking for cracks. I'm looking for anything that may show maybe some foundation or structural issues. And that's for me personally, not licensed.
Yes. So real quick.
All right.
Well, no, we'll get into it with foundation.
Okay.
We'll go there. You had mentioned cracks. We'll talk about that.
There we go.
In foundation.
So tell us what's going on here. Most of us wouldn't have a clue.
Right.
Looks like a
So
rotten wood. piece
it
of
may
wood to
be
me.
difficult to see some of the photos here. And so this is just for illustration purposes. One of the things that I look for when, especially crawl space foundations, if you look at this here, the main thing is these boards, they do not line up. So that tells me that this was not part of the original construction. The different color of the wood, it's hard to tell there, but this is a newer piece of wood compared to the joists that were underneath the house. So that tells me someone was under the house doing some work, and they did something, but it's really not lining up, so it may need more work. There may be some other issues. You may want to have someone else come in before you put your ink on that, and let someone come in and look and say, hey, what else can we adjust?
So who would you call to come look at this past the home inspector?
Someone who does foundation work.
Foundation work. Okay.
Yes, and preferably licensed and bonded. In Mississippi, sometimes not everyone's licensed that comes and does these kinds of work, and then the board ends up a little
I would
off.
say it really depends on if you're retailing the house or if you're keeping it as a rental. Sometimes you send your handyman that can go in there and jack it
Yes.
up and put a board in, and it doesn't matter because you don't have to pass a home inspection to resell it on the market. So just really depends on,
Right.
what your plans are. Let's see. It's
All right.
another foundation.
So here's another thing. If you see two pillars next to each other, somebody was in there doing some work, so get your handyman. This is also, you can see a lot of water stains. So there was some moisture damage that happened underneath the house. And even if you're not a licensed inspector, if you're looking at buying a house and you want to, if it's a dry day, you want to jump under there with a flashlight, just take a quick look, even from a distance, from the edge of the house. If you see signs of this, then hey, wait a minute, maybe I should have someone come and take a closer look, spend the extra money. It would be worth it to come and look at it. And then here you can see, this is the backside of the same pier from a different angle. And you can see we've got some structural issues going on with the timbers. Not all of them are lining up. There's moisture damage, things out of place. And so you're going to want somebody to come and take a closer look
And
at
if you're
that.
getting a loan on the property, the bank's probably going to want you to get that handled before you
Yes.
close on it. Let's see here.
All right. This here, when you're walking around the outside of a house, this is the foundation. You can see a little bit of the slab. You've got the siding, and then you've got either concrete or soil. You might have different foundations here, but there's a chunk missing out of the slab. And if there are any reinforcement materials, so rebar, wire, mesh, anything like that, that is exposed when a chunk of concrete comes out like that, the rust is going to just continue to eat through the rebar. And if anybody knows anything about concrete, concrete does not provide your structural foundation. Concrete, in any foundation, the main job is to be the glue that holds the metal together. When you put wire mesh, you put rebar, that is the strength. That's why you could build high-rise buildings in New Orleans based off of just concrete, like a parking garage. It's not the concrete that holds it up. The concrete seals and protects the metal, and that's where your real strength is. So if you see any metal exposed, then you're going to want to have that addressed. And then here's another issue underneath the house. This lumber was sitting on these piers, and you can see right here, it may be hard to tell from the back, but there's an arch to this. The lumber is now starting to compress. So the weight of the house, this was, I believe, near an exterior wall. So it is holding the major weight of the house and the moisture damage is causing the wood to compress, and it's even got the brick leaning in the mortar. It looks like somebody, I don't see cracks in the mortar, so chances are someone fixed it after that, but they didn't fix the wood. So might have been the handyman instead of the
Handyman
structural
special right there.
engineer coming in.
Let's see here.
Here's another thing. If you see a lot of moisture stains underneath the house, that's something you're going to want to address. Moisture stains under a house. Two major places or sources that could come from. First source is a leak. So if the refrigerator was leaking, or a water heater overflowed the pan or something like that, or a pipe burst inside of the house, something caused the leak, water got onto the structural members underneath there. Or if you don't have proper ventilation around a raised house, if air can't get underneath there after a rain, if it wasn't the dirt underneath, if you didn't have plastic put down or something like that, then moisture can sit under a house, condense, and cause issues like this as well. And I can't tell you how many times I have to walk almost all the way around the house just to find the one little hole to crawl into, because they think it looks cute from the road to have the whole foundation bricked at the bottom. And it does look cute, but structurally you want good airflow under a house. So if you have moisture issues, check one of those two reasons, maybe the source. I thought this was interesting. So there was a major leak. You can see the drain pipe. This was underneath the kitchen. When I got to the home, the seller was there. Actually, not the seller. She was the buyer. She was renting the house, and she wanted to buy the house from the person that was the landlord. And she said, we don't even use the dishwasher, because when we use the dishwasher, we can hear water leak. She couldn't hear water leak when she ran the sink, because it wasn't even leaking out of the pipe. It was leaking in between the next two floor joists and running down like a water fountain. And so she was oblivious to this. For years, she lived in this rental and didn't even know that was leaking, because the water would pool right there by the house and it would run away where she couldn't see it when she would walk past. And so she was so grateful that I was able to come out and do a home inspection for her, because she thought she knew all the issues with the house from living in it, but she wasn't aware of that.
Never crawling under the house. So
Never.
And I would say a lot of times, so I have come across a few where the water is pooling up underneath the house, a lot of times because there's not ventilation, but also because the grade of the yard.
The grade.
So sometimes the grade of the yard will run water back up under the house, and then there's always it's always a little bit lower under the house, and so it'll pool up under there. So sometimes you have to look at putting a French drain in on one side of the house to divert that water around.
Well, that's a symptom. You'll see a lot of houses, they start out small, then they'll add a room over here, maybe add a suite to the side of the house. They do it in stages. The house wasn't just built with one master plan and here you go. And a lot of times that happens with the yard. So you build a house, you figure where you want your foundation to be, but then the landscape guy comes and he's like, hey, we need a garden bed. And they're like, well, I don't want to see underneath the house. Let's raise that up a little bit. And then next thing you know, you're piecemealing, and years later, now you've got exterior ground higher than underneath your house.
Right.
Here's another thing. When you walk up to a house, any house you're looking to purchase, if you see standing water anywhere, that's a red flag. You need to figure out, all right, why is water holding here? This was very close to, this is a separate house, but the house was very close to this right here. You want water to always go at least 6 to 10 feet away from the foundation of your house, because that could lead to erosion. Anytime water moves, just like we see that here in the Mississippi River, that's how the delta gets built up. When water moves, it carries dirt with it. Mm-hmm. And then when it slows down, it'll drop the dirt. And that carries away from your house, away from your foundation. You do not want water anywhere close. So if you see standing water, that's an issue you want to address, at least figure out why, and in a way that you can get it like you said, just flow away from the house, not toward it.
And always, if you don't see standing water, hadn't rained in a while, go back right after it's rained just to see if there's pools in the yard, near the house. Definite thing to do is to check it after the rain, if you can. Sometimes your timeline doesn't allow that, but.
Right. And then here's another thing, and I see this is very common. So this is the siding, there's foundation right there, and a little garden area. And sometimes it's just a matter of not really keeping up with the garden. There are some people maybe just physically aren't able to get out there, and they just hope that the guy cutting the grass will take care of it for them, and this, that, and the other. But I am very much a part of the side that says no vegetation near the house. We see all the French countryside with the ivy growing up the side of the house, and it looks beautiful. It really does. But what this turns into, especially in South Louisiana and the coastal Mississippi area, these are superhighways for termites and other pests, ants, sugar ants, anything that can get in and out the house undetected. You don't even know that they're there. They're protected from the sun, and that it could turn into a nightmare real quick. So if you're walking around the exterior of a house that you're looking to purchase, check the vegetation. You want to be able to see the slab. That way, if the termites are going to show up, they're going to have to put their little mounds on there to protect themselves from the sunlight, which we will talk about termites more later. But you want to make sure when you're looking at the foundation, you want to see that. That way, you'll know when they're present and when they're not. And then the last thing we had talked about, he had mentioned cracks. So when you're looking and you want to know, hey, is this crack, is it structural, or is it just some other
settling, or
something like that? This is a perfect example of if the crack is wider on one side and narrower on the other, that's a structural issue. That means something is moving away in a direction you don't want it to move in. And this was something, this was not far, maybe about 10, 12 feet from the access panel, that a lot of the skirting they had nailed and secured to the house, but they had one little area with screws that you could take down to crawl and get under there. And before I even went under the house, I saw that. So I just zoomed in with my phone and snapped a picture of it. So foundation issues, that's what you look for, and that's what you look for with cracks. Because I get almost everybody asks me about cracks, especially in cement. And I tell them, no, 90% of the cracks that you see in cement, they're just surface cracks. They're really not structural. Every so often you'll see something like that say, all right, yeah, this is definitely a structural issue going on here.
Right. What about cracks on off of door frames on the inside? I know a lot of people say that can be the cause from foundation issues underneath where the house is settling, and
absolutely,
there's been some
and
cracks.
most of the times you'll see them at the corners of windows, especially if you look like brick facades. You see a brick house and it has cracks coming up off of the window. The brick on most brick homes, they're just a facade. They're not structurally holding up the weight of the house. Right. But that's an indication that something is moving and shifting. If you see a crack like that inside next to a door, I would say open and close the door and see if it's rubbing in any way. Because once a door starts to move, it's not perfectly straight anymore, it's going to be hard to open and close.
Or it'll close on its own. I like to open the doors and just let it. And
that's a matter
on its own, sometimes
of the hinges being level.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things when I first started, my very first construction job, full-time job, was with a trim carpenter. And so it was an old man owned the company. His son built the cabinets and he needed a helper, so he hired me. And so I come in first day on the job. He's like, all right, son, I'm going to teach you how to hang a door. And so he shows me how to hang a door, and you have to level it left and right, and then you have to check the wall to make sure it's level this way and that way as well. So you have to check both directions. And he says, and then this is how you put the baseboard in. This is how you cut crown and you put it up. And he walked through after about 30, 45 minutes of explaining everything. He's like, all right, you got it? I was like, wait, I do this myself? And he's like, yes. He's like, I go get to work, He builds the cabinets, you do everything else. And so when you learn how to hang doors by yourself, then you get a better understanding of how they function. At one time I hung a door and I was so worried about the hinge side, I didn't realize that the other side of the door was too close to the ground. It wasn't going to work. So I had to take the whole thing off, and then I realized you got to check the whole door before you start nailing things up. All right, on to roof. This was a home I did an inspection on, and there were 2 gables in the front, and it was a 1-story house, but the attic, they could have made a 2-story house. The attic was massive. And from the outside, you could not tell at all that the flashing going down the sides of the dormers were leaking. And so once I got in the attic and I saw the water stains, and it was on both dormers. And so that was a sign, obviously, that the flashing was deteriorating. The roof was not necessarily in a place where it needed to be replaced completely, but the flashing needed to be addressed as well. And then when you're looking at a roof, one of the top questions I get is, how much longer is my roof going to last? And if I could tell you that answer, I'd be a wealthy man. But one of the signs to look for, if you understand how shingles are made, there's like a felt paper with fibers inside of it. Then they put tar on top of that and granules. And the granules are what protects the tar and the fibers from deteriorating, but the granules from walking on it, from rain, hail, various different things, course of time, wind, sometimes keeping trees away from a roof is a high priority. If the tree limbs are close, they might not be touching your roof, but if a hurricane comes through, they will, and they'll scrape back and forth, and it'll start pulling the granules off. So if you see places where granules are missing, you know that this roof has deteriorated a good bit. If the granules are missing and you can see the little fibers starting to show in the tar, that's when I put in my report, this is an end of life. So we're getting to a point where the roof might not be leaking today, but start saving your money, start making plans of how you're gonna, get some quotes and see what it's gonna take to get that roof fixed. But if it's just granules missing at this point, you might be able to buy yourself a few years of time to help work towards that. But that's what you look for, is granules. And I think I have several pictures.
I would say debris in the valleys.
Yes, so there's another picture. You'll see there'll be some more debris. But debris on a roof is very important to look for. This is an instance. This is inside of the attic, and this is looking at the main ridge, the top board that runs along the very top, that all the rafters, they come to a point. And most of the times, houses that are built to breathe, that have traditional insulation down on the ceiling joists, and they have soffit vents, and air comes in the soffit vents, and then the hot air rises to the very top part of the house, and it evacuates through ridge vents. That's the plan. This particular house, it's hard to see in this picture, but they let the felt paper run all the way up to the top. And so the felt paper was blocking the air from going out of the ridge vent. And so most people walking in the attic, first of all, if you're in the attic and it's 120 degrees, you're not looking around to see if they did that right. But that might be one of the reasons why it's so hot in your attic, if you can't get the air out. So if you see a ridge vent in there, just look and make sure you can see the plastic of the ridge vent in the gap between the plywood and that ridge board, just so that you know air can move.
Okay.
And this picture here, I had to kind of get down and take a picture, but these shingles are raised. So it could be a nail that's sticking up. It could be something, maybe they were doing a repair or something, but you want your shingles flat, that when they get hot, that tar, they kind of melt towards each other, and that helps create a seal as well. So if you see any kind of lifting on the shingle, you're going to want to get someone that does roof work that's very familiar and knows what they're doing to come out there and get that fixed properly for you. You don't want to just take a hammer and beat that nail down from the top, because then you create a hole and a whole nother issue. Here's another instance. Went up into the attic, and this is where they had, sometimes you'll see a house, it doesn't just have a roof over the living space. There might be a second floor, or they might be a gable roof on one side and something. So you've got a wall up there mixed in with your ridge line. So this was in a place where the wall, the side of the house, had come together with the roof line. And again, the flashing on the outside was letting water in at some point. Now, this was not a major concern. I took a picture of this and I documented it in my report that there was evidence at some point there was moisture damage in there, but there was a relatively new metal roof that was on the house, and there were no new signs. There wasn't any fresh marks of water damage. So I told the client, it looks like there was an issue, and when they put the new roof on, they took care of it.
Right. So a lot of times when you get up in there and you see some water damage, it's good to know when the roof was put on. That may be from the old roof before.
It may be previous damage.
Are you putting a moisture meter on there or something?
No, sir. As standard operating practices, we do not put moisture meters on for the purpose of inspecting a home. We don't use technical devices for that. That would be a more in-depth.
But we can use them if we want.
Right. The challenge with that, and any home inspector, especially if you go to the CE courses, if you do something very scientific or specific in your home inspection, now you're taking it to a whole nother level, and you're also held to a higher responsibility. So if you start using a moisture meter and you don't find all the areas in the house that had moisture issues, then they could come back and say, hey, you found this, why didn't you find that? And it could cause issues. So most home inspectors are going to stick to the standard operating practices. Now, is it a bad idea for you to carry a moisture meter? If you're curious if something is present or not, knock yourself out. It's not hard to do, not hard to operate. Yes?
So this specific situation, new roof, not an issue anymore, but that's there. Does that have to be like fixed, or it stays wet looking?
As long as it is structurally sound, it does not have to be repaired. This is older plywood. If it was OSB that got wet, OSB's, it looks like particle board glued and pressed together. When that gets wet, it loses its structural integrity real quick. Older plywood, it can get wet and still hold most of its integrity as long as you fix or repair, keep the moisture from coming back in as soon as you can. It's pretty good. This again here, there are spots where there are rub marks, and sometimes when I'm standing up on the roof and I see things like this, I try to imagine, it's like, what could have been here at some point to cause this? Is this a manufacturer's defect that only affected a few of these shingles? Or is it possible maybe years ago there was a tree in the area, some limbs were hanging over, rubbing on the roof, and they decided to cut the tree down before I come out to do an inspection. But for whatever reason, sometimes we don't always know the answer. But if you see wear spots on the shingle, it's beginning its end of life process, and you want to have that fixed or repaired or make plans for it. Put that in your budget if you see that starting to happen.
When I walk and I see a roof like this, I'm automatically budgeting for a new roof. There's just no doubt about it. Especially with the non-architectural and just the age of it, there's some gaps in it.
The 3-tab shingles, these are 3-tab. The architectural ones, they look like they're stacked. Mm-hmm. The 3-tab ones, they have the shortest lifespan, the shortest guarantee time from the manufacturers.
Are people still putting those on?
There are some low-budget projects. They go in. I see relatively new 3-tab from time to time. Most of what I see is architectural.
Yeah.
Here was a situation where actually my wife noticed this first. We were walking around and I noticed from the ground, I said, the roof looks really thick up there. This is a re-roof situation. So instead of them taking the old shingles off and starting over with new felt or new underlayment, they just came in and they just nailed up a whole nother roof right on top of that. Technically, that is legal. According to the practices, I believe you can do up to 3 layers before you're required to have it taken off. If you talk to a shingle manufacturer, they might not honor the warranty on that roof if it was done like this. So the laws might tell you, hey, you can re-roof up to 3 layers, but you might not get your warranty, or the bank may come in and say, we don't, or the insurance company may come in and say, we don't play that game.
Right.
And then they may require you, that might be a relatively new roof, and now you got to take both of them off in order to get your insurance.
Right.
And so that's a conversation, especially in the last year or so, I've had with a lot of my clients that I've heard, I don't know for sure, I've heard of stories where some people are trying to buy a house and they're getting insurance quotes, and if the roof is older than 8 or 10 years, they're requiring a new roof in order to insure the property. Yeah, I've heard it from several people, not just one or two. And it's crazy. You buy a 30-year roof, and then 10 years later, you got to put a new one on, not because the roof is bad or the industry said you have to, just the insurance company said, no, we're not going to touch
So
it.
in Florida, and Mississippi passed it as well, Louisiana hasn't yet, but they are not allowing them not to cover you based on the age, just the condition.
Oh,
So that's
That's
very new in Mississippi. Florida just passed it recently with all the. So
That's good news.
Louisiana is trying. I think that it's coming, but there's still, there's different markets for insurance, and I'm not for sure, but some markets.
it all depends on the insurance company.
Right, and some markets they don't have to abide by what the state says, and then
Right.
some they do. So it just depends on who. I would talk to your agent if you have any questions on that, but
Yes, or get multiple quotes
for sure.
if you can. I know sometimes that's a challenge too.
Oh yeah.
This one is just another picture. This one, if you were there in person, you could see this was severely worn. And in situations like this, I definitely put end of life in my report. And that's something that it might not be leaking today, but it won't be long.
Yeah, that used to, those shingles were black, I believe.
Yes, and that is architectural. So these are architectural. You can see where it has
Right.
that stacked look. Those are the architectural shingles. Yes.
Used to be.
All right, plumbing issues. Here's a time my wife was with me on this home inspection, and I had put my ladder up. That's another thing. By having a wife who's also licensed, she's my partner in crime. When we get to a house, we divide and conquer. So I'm a gentleman. I let her do the inside and test the air condition while I go up on the roof and I get the outside done. And so this was a situation. This was a driveway. There's a garage right here, and it comes off perpendicular. And then this is right next to the kitchen. There was a window right over the sink in the kitchen right there. So I put my ladder up, and I went up my ladder, and I went and took care of the roof. And she started in the kitchen. We like to start with the kitchen on the inside. One of the reasons is we run the dishwasher. So even a quick cycle is usually a 1-hour run on the dishwasher to make sure it doesn't leak. So we start with the kitchen, we run things, and then that way it's all done by the time we finish. We don't want to get to the end and then have to wait an hour for a dishwasher. So she started in the kitchen. When I came down the ladder, I saw water on the ground that I didn't remember seeing there before I went up the ladder. And then I could see water trickling down out the side of the foundation from underneath the siding. And I thought, So I knocked on the window and I asked her what she was running, and she said the sink was right there and the dishwasher. So both were running. And so she had turned both of them off. I think the dishwasher kept running, but she turned the sink off. And so I snapped a picture of it, and then I started walking around and I did the rest of the house as I was doing my report. And then at the very end, the homeowner happened to be there, the seller, while we were doing our inspection. And so here's another thing about home inspections. If you hire me to do a home inspection on a house that you're looking to buy, you are my client. Nobody else. You are my client. If you want me to share that report with your real estate agent, I highly recommend that. They're people we trust. They're helping us get the deal done. But I've had clients say, no, don't send it to my real estate agent, just me. I'm the only one that wants to get the report. And that's legally how it's set up. That's just fine. So I do not share report information of my findings with a current homeowner. unless we're in a situation like this where there's an active leak going on. So I'm gonna be courteous enough to say, hey, look, this is one thing I happen to notice you might not have noticed. As a matter of fact, it was a hot summer day. So after I did my rounds on the outside, right as we were about to leave, I told the homeowner, I said, look, I want to let you know you have an active leak. And we walked over there and you couldn't see it. It had dried up. The sun dried it and it was gone. And at first she didn't believe me. And so my wife, I sent her back in. I said, go turn the sink on in the kitchen. And I showed her the picture. I was like, I'm telling you, it was here. I've got a picture. I saw it. And it took probably a good 4 to 5 minutes for the water to start showing up. And so I'm glad that she was patient enough to wait to see, because she didn't even know that that was there. And if we hadn't come to do a home inspection, she might not have.
Was it a leak in the slab or was it up in the actual drain pipe?
So we couldn't see any indications of leaking inside of the cabinet, and a home inspection is just a visual inspection. We don't start tearing stuff out to investigate. So we couldn't see it from inside the cabinet, and this is the only thing we could see outside. So at that point, I told her, I said, you have to find out if it's cheaper to pull cabinets out or pull vinyl siding down. I said, vinyl siding might be the cheapest way to investigate this from the outside and save you some money, and then maybe get it fixed and put the same vinyl siding right back up. This picture here, this is a dishwasher drain tying into the drain pipes for the sink, and they decided they didn't want to put a clamp on that. So, and actually, if you were there in person, you could see what they did was they may have heated that pipe up, that hose up, and stretched it over. But still, they didn't put a clamp on it. And so that went in my report. That's not something that I would just trust, because the pumps off of a dishwasher, they put pressure. Most other drain pipes don't really have pressure other than water pressure. You fill your sink or tub up just like a water tower. That creates a little pressure. But most of the time, drain pipes don't have pressure unless there's a pump. Washing machines have pumps. Dishwashers have pumps. I had another situation. I don't have a picture of this one here, but I sprayed a real estate agent down really good one day. I was in the kitchen, and they had a pipe with a clamp on it. And all I did was visually look at it, and I saw it was present, but the clamp was not tightened down. And I didn't realize this. And so I'm standing in the kitchen. I'm focused on my phone, and she was standing on the other side. The sink was kind of in a peninsula. She's standing on the other side of the sink, and now she sees a river of water running towards the back door. She said, is something leaking? And I looked down, and the pipe had come off, and water's just pumping like a water hose, filling up the cabinet and flowing out the front. And the first thing I could think was grab the pipe, pull it up, and put it into the sink, so at least it'll drain into the sink before I can cancel the dishwasher. That's the fastest way. I didn't know she had run around, so I grabbed it, and I go to put it in there, and I just sprayed her with water. But she was so sweet. She did hire me to do another home inspection later, so we're still friends.
I actually had something happen just the other day in one of my Airbnbs. So I have a sink that has a very similar situation, not the dishwasher, but P-trap and then the drain pipe. The sink kept filling up and was not draining. And it's been like this for a while, but we thought we had that taken care of. Well, I finally got a plumber out there that knew what he was doing. This had a fall this way instead of a fall this way.
Yes. So that's another thing to check for with plumbing is you want to check and make sure that the pipes are not level. They can't be perfectly level, otherwise water wouldn't run. They need to slope 1/4 inch and 4 feet, and water will run. And so that's all the drop you need. But another thing, if you have long runs of pipes, either under the house, or sometimes I've seen them along the side of a house, depends on who remodeled it. But you want to make sure, especially long runs that don't have dips in them. You want them supported and running on a straight angle away from where you're trying to drain, not back towards.
Right. Is it just called the sink just fills up just a little bit?
So what that was causing in a situation like this is you not only have one P-trap, now you have a second P-trap. Yeah. And you don't trap to a trap. That's a surefire way to have water back up in the sink. Here's another thing. I see this is very common. I will tell you this. if this is going out on the internet, there are places in Mississippi that do not get code violations for this. But if you see plastic flexible piping as a drain, especially if it disappears into the wall, I call a plumber.
Yeah.
Have them do it the proper way. It's a cheap, easy way if you're a DIY person and, hey, this sink's been leaking, it's my kid's bathroom, and I'm tired of hearing the complaints. I'm just going to put this in there. Very cheap, very easy, simple fix. But it's not proper, and it's not going to last as long as you think it will.
Pretty sure they sell that kit at Home Depot.
Oh, yes, and I'm sure Home Depot makes a good bit of money off of those kits.
And plumbers make a good bit of money coming back and fixing it.
In Mississippi, too, yes. Here's an interesting situation. This is the underneath of a raised house. So I'm underneath a raised house, and this is a brand new construction. This is new construction. And so I noticed that all of the joints, there was about 5 of them under the house, had been painted black. And so after I snapped my pictures, I'm putting that in my report, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put that in my report. So I send it to a licensed plumber. He's a friend of mine. I send him a text message with the pictures, and I said, can you think of a reason why someone would want to paint parts of the plumbing black? And he sends a laughing emoji, and he says, that looks like Flex Seal. I was like, I would have never guessed a professional plumber would be that familiar with Flex Seal. And he said, not me, but I've seen it. So I don't know what happened. Maybe when the spray foam application went in at that point, or maybe the plumber didn't do the best job gluing all of the joints, and the cheapest, easiest way to fix that was a can of black Flex Seal. But I went in my report, and the buyer had showed up, him and his wife, they had come, and I said, I'm not saying that it's leaking, because I ran pipes. It never did leak while I was there. I said, and it might last 100 years. I don't know what the warranty is on Flex Seal.
That commercial, that'll sell you,
Yeah,
though.
I mean, I know you can paddle a boat
You
in the
can
lake
paddle
with
a
Flex
boat,
Seal.
right?
So it may hold up, but I told him, I said, it's not normal, so it definitely went in my report.
Well, it's interesting that the insulation, the foam insulation around the seal, around the exit pipe is lighter than the surrounding.
It may be the flash. I didn't see any concerns with the foam at that point. Either the heat, because when foam is applied, spray foam, there's a chemical reaction and it gives off a lot of heat. And that could have had some sort of effect on the pipe. It doesn't usually. If you've got a good seal, you make sure primer, so if you're ever doing any plumbing work yourself, that purple primer is there for a reason. Make sure you get it well past where you want to put the glue. You don't want any gaps in your primer. If you have glue with no primer, you're not getting a good seal on that plumbing pipe. It will leak. This was a water heater in the attic, and it was a gas water heater. That's why there's a flue. And so just obviously walking up, looking at this, first thing is, this pipe is your vent pipe. It doesn't need to be touching or enclosing the cap right here, but it needs to be centered over it. One of the most dangerous things that could happen with anything gas-fired, especially a water heater, or if you have a furnace in the attic, if the gas fumes are not properly venting out of the house, those spent fumes could come back down, fill the attic space, and you have a flame somewhere real close to that, and you don't want that to happen. So
Boom.
Make sure that you get have that plumber shift that water heater over, or adjust the pipe, maybe adjust the strap on the pipe. You want it centered right over that flue.
I've seen where the roofers redid
Do a repair.
Did not get in the attic to line that back up. They took it out, fixed it.
Because they're roofers. They're only worried about the roof. They're not worried about that water heater that's down in there.
Pushed it back down, and it was perfect.
Looks like I'm getting in the attic tonight. No.
The winter time is the best time to check that. Yes, sir. So here, it's hard to see in the back, but this is a 24-inch by 30-inch return. Now, this return was sucking in so much air that it was bending the filter. And the number one thing I would think in a situation like that is the size of the return, as big as it is, the size of the return might not be the optimal sign, because when the fan motor, which is moving air through your air conditioned unit, if that is creating that much of a suction at that point, and I'm not a HVAC professional, my uncle is, and we may have some here in the room, but I've seen several houses where maybe instead of a 24 by 30, a really big, wide, maybe you put a 24 by 24 return here, and then add a second return somewhere else. Add a return in a master bedroom, or maybe in another, a hallway on the other side of the house, but have both of those returns come in together before they go into the unit. So having a qualified HVAC person to come out and properly, not just properly size the hole of the air that needs to travel through it, but maybe placement as well might be beneficial. And my uncle, he's semi-retired now, but he's been doing air conditioning for 40 years. He always likes to oversize his returns. And the reason why he suggests that is because then it becomes quieter. The same amount of cubic feet per meter, or whatever CFMs are recording, will go through that unit. But he did that in our living room. We had a return in our living room, and then we had another return right there next to it off of another room nearby. And you could almost not really tell when the air conditioner was running. It was so quiet. You didn't hear air sucking.
That filter looked like a Walmart filter. The quality of the filter.
All right. So if it was pleated, yeah, that's the only kind of filters you can get. Now here's another thing. While we're talking about filters, I want to say 0 air conditioning manufacturers have designed pleated filters to go in their system. So if you're putting a pleated filter, the only ones you can get at Home Depot or Walmart, the old mesh looking ones, those are the best ones, and those are the ones that were designed to allow enough air to go through. So another situation could be, maybe this was just perfectly the right size, but you put a pleated air filter which doesn't let as much air move through as the open mesh ones, and then that creates more like a sail effect going in and causing that to happen.
I never thought about that.
I got to check out our system. We were using the pleated ones, and he said that's too much. It's not letting enough air.
It blocks the air.
Several years later, his brother came out. They worked together, and the company came out, and he was looking at some of it. These inside ducts are the cleanest ducts I've ever seen, because we didn't stop using the pleated filter.
Right, right.
They don't let as much air, but they also keep it clean.
But
right?
they keep it clean. That's right.
Filter doing its job.
Here's a picture. This is what the coils look like inside of an air conditioned unit. So just basically speaking, an air conditioned unit has a fan motor, sucks air from the return, pushes it out into all the other vents throughout the house. And then there's a set of coils, and this is where your refrigerant comes in. If you have a heat pump, then in the summertime, when you're trying to cool the house, the refrigerant, when it travels through these coils, is going to be very cold. So as the air travels across these coils, it cools the air, and then you have cool air coming out in your house. And it works just the opposite a heat pump does in the wintertime, like right now when it's cold. So then the refrigerant inside of these coils are going to be warm, and so the air coming in from the return, it warms it up. So again, just like the pleated filter, if you have dust, if you have corrosion, if you have any buildup on the coils, that reduces the amount of air that can flow. And then it also, dust will create almost like an insulation. So you've got a really cold refrigerant in there that wants to cool the air, but you've got a nice thick layer of dust around it, so you're not cooling the air as much as you would like, so your air conditioner is going to run longer, and you may never reach your desired temperatures. And a lot of times you'll call an HVAC guy out, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to come in here and clean these coils, and it's going to make a world of difference. while we're talking about air conditioning, like, here's a 50 amp breaker. It's like, why do you have an electrical breaker in with the air condition? Here's one issue I've seen quite a bit here recently. So if you had, say, a 20, 30-year-old air conditioned unit that was put in many years ago, and the SEER rating on them, the older units, they're not as energy efficient as the ones today. So maybe that older one, if you look on the tag on the unit, it might have said that it was a 50 amp max fuse rating on that condenser unit. Well, then they come in and they put a brand new Train or Ream or Carrier, one of these brand new, and it's, I mean, it's very energy efficient. And it's a 35 amp max fuse now. Well, now you're overfusing, because if this breaker isn't going to trip till it hits 50 amps, but yet the air condition is set to a max of 35. After 35, it's just going to start burning up, because it's not, this breaker is now not going to trip it. So that's one of the things that I look for, especially if I see a home that has some age on it and a brand new unit. I'm going to check the electrical and see if when they put that brand new unit, if they put a new breaker in to match the max fuse rating on the air condition. Because you, especially if you just put a new unit in, you spend several $1,000s, you don't want that burning up just because you forgot to put one little breaker in there. So under air condition, check the breakers, especially if something was put in recently.
And most of the time, this is very similar to where the return air is, or is this going to be in your box?
So, some houses, that breaker could be in a little small panel right there next to the air conditioned unit. Other houses, it's going to be in a sub panel. If a house was built within the last 10, 15 years, one of the things electricians are doing is anything over 20 amps, they're putting outside at the main. Because I don't know if you notice, if you've ever been in an older house, when the air condition kicks on, the lights flicker a little bit. If you have high amp rated breakers on the same sub panel or main panel, well, the main panel would be different, but if there's a sub panel inside that has a high amperage breaker on it, and you've got the lights on the same, not the same circuit, but the same bus panel, then you'll see the lights will flicker. If you put all of your heavy breakers outside at the main and let the sub panel just be your lights and your low amperage 20, 15 amp breakers, that you don't see the lights flicker. So the newer way of installing those is going to be at the main. So chances are something this high is going to be either right there by the air conditioning unit or right there where your electrical meter box is located.
It's good to know.
All I'm seeing is the cloth wiring on the.
Yes, cloth wiring. I still see that from time to time. Here's a situation. They have a filter. This is your return. But the platform for the air condition is in the middle of it. So when this closes up, there's no air seal back behind this. There's a gap. So when air is being sucked into the bottom of this unit, it's not only coming in through your filter and grabbing air from inside of the house, but if this is open all the way to the attic, it's pulling straight attic air right into your air condition, and you're trying to cool your house with 120-degree air coming
And coils
right
are probably
into it.
getting real dirty and dusty.
Yes, and this may or may not have been the same coils I just took a picture of, because I take a picture of coils on almost every house. Very rarely. A lot of my new construction, I don't see too much. I don't have to take pictures of the coils, but a lot of them, they're dirty, and it's for reasons like this. So you want to make sure if you have a return space, you want to make sure it is sealed off from everything except for bringing air in from the inside of the house.
That helps with the moisture inside the house as
Yes. And then here's another picture. This is a return. This is on the ceiling, and you can see dust bunnies building up. That means that return is not sealed. So you've got a filter trying to collect dust before it gets into all your ducts. But if this isn't sealed and air is creeping in over that, then you could end up with dust on your coils and in your duct work, and you're defeating the purpose of having a filter if you don't seal that up. So check your return grill and make sure that it's sealed.
About when you're walking through the house and you see an air vent and it looks like dirt's shooting out of it. Is that solely based off of dirty coils and filter not being changed, or?
So if you're going to see that, there's some kind of moisture relation going in with that. I know a lot of houses down here you'll see in the summertime that the vents will condensate and moisture will build up on those. And if you have any kind of dust or dirt that's coming out, the dust and dirt could stick to it. Depending on how much condensation and how long that's standing there, you could end up with organic growth, mold could start to show up. So keep that clean, keep it dry. I called my uncle because he's the one put the air conditioning system in when we built the house. And we had a vent in the master bathroom, had its own little area for the commode. And that grill in there, it just always seemed to have condensation on it. And he said there was a way to adjust that. So he came out to the house and he adjusted the amount of airflow. I think we had too much air coming in. So there are ways that they can adjust that. A professional HVAC person can nail that down.
Especially on the newer systems.
Especially on the newer systems. Here's another situation. This is your return going in, and they obviously didn't have something sealed off because there was a lot of dust, dirt, organic growth, all of the above was in there. And I did have a home inspection about 2 years ago, and I took a picture of the return, and there was kids' toys, there was like Mardi Gras beads, there's all kind of stuff in the return. So I took a picture, dirty return, and the real estate agent called me. She was mad. She said, "Are you serious? Is this the house? You inspected the right house?" I'm like, "Yes." And she said, "I paid a guy to clean that." I was like, "Well, you have the report.
He missed the
Give him a
return.
call. Let me know how that works out." You know,
Send him the picture.
He was kind enough to come out there and clean it for free the second time.
That's so.
Yes. All right, moving on to electric service. There is absolutely nothing wrong with using aluminum wire for service wires. Okay, so most municipalities, when the electrical wires come in from the telephone pole or from underground, that's all going to be copper. And your service entrance wires that come in either from the overhead or underground that goes into your main panel, those are all going to be copper. Now, to save money, and sometimes, depending on what time you're building, right after a storm or something like that, it might be hard to get enough copper wire. So it's okay to use aluminum if you're going from panel to panel. You do not want to use aluminum from panel to a load, so like an outlet or a light switch. You do not want, they outlawed that, I think, back in the 70s. There were issues, especially if you have aluminum and copper come together and you put them in a wire nut. It might be tight today, but over time, heat, they shrink at different rates, and one could fall out of the conductor, create a fire, and cause major problems. So the only place that you can do that, remember, is from panel to panel. So if you have a main panel outside where the electrical meter is located, and you want to run wire to another sub panel somewhere else in the house, because those are going to be tightened down on lugs. And that's perfectly fine. The reason why I took a picture of this one is they make this really gray, dark gray looking antioxidant paste. You want to use that every time. There's a, I won't say the builder's name, but there's a big company that builds out in like the Ocean Springs, Biloxi side. And I've inspected several of their houses, and I have written up in my report that they didn't use antioxidant paste every time, and they still don't put it in there. I don't know if maybe the code enforcers are not checking behind them because of their relationship or whatever. I don't know.
I think you got that part right, the relationship.
But if you do see aluminum, make sure it's on a lug. It can be in a breaker if that breaker is servicing a sub panel, and that's okay because there are lugs on the breaker, but you don't want to see it going throughout the rest of the house. And look for the paste. Here's a situation, may be hard to tell, especially from the back of the room. This is a 100 amp breaker. This is outside, so the electrical meter is right above. There's a tag from the electrical company. The meter is up here. And then these are all of the big breakers, like I said, the heavy duty guys for the air condition, the stove, and things like that. And then this is a 100 amp breaker that is serving a sub panel inside of the house. So that's where this wire's going. It's copper and it's down on the screw. And then right next to this was an air condition unit. And when whoever was working on the air condition unit needed to tie in for electricity, they needed one more little bitty gray wire to connect, and they just tied it right in to the same breaker. And it's not even balancing the load. It's only pulling off a little more on one side than the other. They're creating a whole mess of night. As a matter of fact, this was not the only thing. This was the same house. There was no, this is a different house. But there were several issues going on that got written up in the report, and they actually came and they redid the whole entire service. This was another house. We don't see fuses very often anymore, but they're still out there, especially some of the older houses in Mississippi. Instead of having breakers like this, there are fuses that you just reach in there and pull them out, and then that breaks the circuit. Yeah, so don't stand in water barefoot when you're doing that. But here's another situation. They had the older style fuse. That was the same thing as a breaker. And then here, they've got the big heavy wire coming off of that. And then here are the two smaller wires going to, that's probably an air conditioner or something else. But it's a smaller wire. And the main thing to look for in electric is the breakers are sized on amperage, how much amperage that they can handle before they will trip, shut off. That's what protects you from having a runaway fire hazard. But the wires are also rated for how many amps can travel across, depending on how much surface space you have. The bigger the wire, the more amps can travel across it. And so you don't want a little bitty wire connected to a really big breaker like that, because if this, for some reason, gets more current on it than it can handle, that breaker is not going to trip. This wire is going to catch on fire and burn whatever it can. Matter of fact, that fire might burn until the fire department gets there, and the breaker will never trip. So you don't want small wires on the same circuit as something that's rated for much higher. And you definitely don't, one screw, one wire. One screw, one wire. You don't want three wires on the same screw, because one of them's just not getting as good a connection as the other. So that's what to, and this is something simple as just pulling a panel off and looking inside. You don't have to touch any, or you don't want to touch anything, but you pull the panel off and you see these things right away. It's very obvious. There are houses that still have fuse panels. We call them fuse panels, but they have breakers in there. Yeah. But yeah, and there was knob and tube wire behind that. I couldn't get this panel off because they installed a cabinet in front of it, and the cabinet was screwed to the wall. But I could tell from the attic there were knob and tube wires behind that. But we still see that these days. Here's another situation. This was on the exterior of a house. This was a separate panel that when you have an air conditioning unit installed on the outside of a house, you have to have a way, if the HVAC technician comes, they got to be able to turn the power off and test and run things. So there's some way for them to turn power off to the condenser when they are servicing it. So this one had a flex tube to protect the wires going to the air conditioning unit, but it had fallen out and it had rained so much that it's hard to tell from this picture, but there was water right up to about that point inside of that tube. So the whole thing is going to need to be replaced at that point.
Will insurance companies insure a property that has knob and tube or cloth wiring?
Most of them that I'm aware of, once they know about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't that come up in a 4-point?
If they request a 4-point, then yes.
Yeah, they'll ask the question, has the electrical been updated?
And also, the first thing they want to know, when was the building built, the age of the construction. So by knowing the age, if it's more than like 30 years, they will definitely past the
Yeah.
FEMA.
Yes.
And then from there, depending on that report, they even go further.
Yeah.
And they have that right to do that because they're insuring that property.
Right.
Right.
First thing is the age.
Yeah.
If you're talking historical properties, uptown New Orleans, that's.
It turns into a high risk.
Second
Yes.
issue, when was the last time it was updated? If it was updated, was it done with permits?
Yes.
So what's it cost to rewire a 1,500 square foot house nowadays?
Oh.
Oh, it depends on what electrician is coming out there.
Probably 10,
Walls, not just take a.
depending on, yeah.
You got walls and everything.
Yeah,
Probably-
you're gonna have 5 digits in
I
that
mean,
quote.
It's been a couple years since, I've had.
Probably
I've had
10,
rewire.
roughly, I would
It's been a
say,
few years.
give or take.
Yeah, especially if,
grand.
if you've pulled all the sheetrock out. I mean, if you're down to the
A
studs.
lot cheaper then. You could
then
probably get
you
it
could
done for
get it cheaper.
like 5. But if you got to go through the sheetrock, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah,
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 But when I see the not like the tubes and the little
yeah.
glass fuses,
Yeah.
I'm budgeting to
Yeah,
replace it
the
all.
whole thing. Yes. This house was upgraded. They added the new Romex in, and they put a clamp here to protect the wires, but they didn't put a clamp here to protect those wires. And so, if anything, runs across there, if those wires move for any reason, they could rub against that metal, and it could cause problems. So, if you see missing clamps or holes that don't need to be there, if they knock something out and decided not to put a wire through there, put something in. Home Depot sells those things. Even you'll see, I think I have a picture of unused openings on where the breakers are. You don't want to leave that open. It's easy to open those doors and kids could stick their fingers straight in. So any unused openings, you want to make sure they're closed up. And then if wires are coming through, make sure you clamp them off.
It's just laziness.
Yes,
That's laziness.
yes.
Didn't have the part when they were putting it.
That's right. They ran out of clamps and they were like, close that one up. We'll be all right.
This image here might not look like there's really a whole lot going on, except this white wire, it looks pretty burnt right there. So at some point, something caused that wire to get warm enough to turn that white insulation black. And so it could have been a previous instance. Maybe they put a new breaker in. Maybe they put a new breaker in 20 years ago, and it's been fine ever since. But if I see something like that, it's going to go in my report just because I don't know if it's really fixed the problem or not. An electrician can come in at that point and confirm. Termites. This is a topic almost everybody asks about. I'm going to try to wrap up real quick.
Yeah, we'll get through it.
But this is a popular topic because we have these issues. What are some things to look for? If you see wood missing, if you see channels dug out in the wood, could be moisture. Most of the time it's going to be termites. This was under a house. Whole chunks were starting to fall out because that's how much the termites ate that up. You can go on to the next one. This one here, this is what the channels look like. The termites, they start on the inside. If you see a tunnel on the outside of a house or underneath or a rafter underneath the house, if you see a tunnel, those termites have been eating the inside of the wood, and they didn't have a GPS map, so they didn't know where the edge of the wood was. And if they pop a hole in the edge of the wood, then they have worker termites that'll come in and they will patch and seal, and they'll make tunnels because they're like vampires. They cannot see the light. That would destroy them. And so this was a situation where after I knocked the tunnel off, we actively had termites. That was another time that I told the homeowner that was selling the house, I said, hey, you have active termites in multiple locations that I found on the house. You may want to address that yesterday.
So
Right.
if you go see a tunnel and you go and knock it off, and if you don't see any live ones, what do you think that then?
So if none fall out, and sometimes it may take a minute because they may be traveling back and forth. That might be a route for them. So it doesn't mean that they're not there. They could be there. But if none fall out, then either it's been treated. Another thing I'll look is you see the little green plastic tabs in the ground around the house. If I see termite damage, but I don't see the presence of termites and they have those little bait stations, then I know that at some point they probably treated the house and now they have a contract in place to keep more from coming back. But But just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not there or they're not using that as a travel point to get to another location.
So
in the
we
house.
had one.
Their nest, termite might be eating the wood in your house, but the nest where the queen lives might be in a wood pile in your yard or a tree not far from the house. Those termites don't necessarily live in your house. They might just travel there to eat and then go back home and rest.
Yeah, so we had one that the floor was about to fall through, you know, it was pushing. I was like, oh, must be some water. It was a raised house, must be some water underneath. We'll have to get that looked at or whatever. So, you know, we didn't see termite, you know, residue tunnels or anything. So we were, you know, we figured it was just the moisture underneath the house. We budgeted for that, and then, you know, the day came where we closed on the house, and I'm like, let's pull some of this floor up and see what's under here. We pulled the floor up, and we could just grab the subfloor and just, like, we punched a hole through it and then just pulled it up, and there was termites everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So, needless to say, we put some new subfloor down and treated the termites, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
There was no structural issues,
Oh, that's good.
just subfloor.
This was that same house. This was on the front porch. They had 2 separate windows on either side of the house. Both sides were infested. And this is where their GPS got them lost. So they're chewing through the wood, and they pop out. They create little tunnels to cover themselves up, and then they kept going. And this was the ceiling of the front porch.
And they're looking for soft wood.
The
correct?
softer, the better. Yes. All right, and then just a couple of interesting photos. If you want to install a new microwave with a vent over your stove, and you don't have enough space, and it's wider than the cabinet over the stove, you just cut a notch in the cabinet and you move on. I mean, they were selling this house in this condition.
Hopefully at a discount.
It floated their boat. Does anybody want to take a guess what happened to this? Why this hole in the wall?
Kool-Aid Man.
Almost a car. No. So this is inside of a 2-car garage in an older home, and for some reason this was a brick wall all the way across, and then there was a storage room behind where you'd park your car. The guy bought a boat, and he wanted it inside of the garage because the homeowners association said it had to be inside, and it didn't fit. So he knocked out, like the Kool-Aid Man, a hole so he could back his boat in, and the motor was almost touching the back wall from
Sounds
what I
like
hear
some
the story was.
Mississippi. Yeah.
This was not Mississippi.
Oh, really?
This was not Mississippi.
Is that a
This,
structural issue?
no, sir. No, sir. Not structural. So here's a situation. Oh, this is in a basement in a house in Mississippi. And so the air condition unit and the ducts were in the floor of the residence, and the basement was down below. And so they really didn't have a place for gravity, the moisture that came off of the air condition unit, they didn't have a place for it to go. So at the bottom of the drain pipe coming off of the air condition unit was a sump pump. So as that sump pump would collect water, it'd kick on and it'd pump the water up and out of the drain. As a matter of fact, this is the little rubber hose that came off of it, and the hose from the pump went up into the drain. The drain lines from the house were in the basement as well, and it tied in.
Definitely Mississippi.
Here's another interesting situation. If you're looking to buy a house, and all of our lady friends, they want to have a garden, they want to make it look nice, they want to put plants in it. The number one thing, this is the garage, there's the house, there's the front porch, and you have to have a walkway to get across there. If you do not, they put the drainage from the gutters right onto the cement, nothing directing it away because they didn't want to create a trip hazard. And there is no piping underneath the slab. So they now have a pool in their front yard because that's what's going to happen. Any rain, because there was no cover over that, any rain that'll come down, you want to keep moist water, moist dirt away from your house. You want it to always drain away. So a French drain and putting this pipe into a French drain coming underneath there, that's,
And this was a brand new house.
this was new construction.
Yeah.
New
Looks
construction.
Oh, that's it.
And that was it. That was just a couple interesting photos. So, questions?
I got a new construction question.
Yes.
Just said that. If you're gonna get an inspection on a house, I heard that you should wait till the end of the builder's warranty and get your inspection done instead of doing it when you buy the house.
Okay, I had a conversation with my daughter about this when she started driving. I was riding with her and somebody almost hit her, and she was like, "That's all right, Dad. It would have been their fault." I'm like, "Yeah, it would have been their fault, but you still sitting on the side of the road talking to the police officers and calling the insurance company, and you have to go through all of this." When you're buying a house, a contractor will give you a 1-year warranty. Almost all of them do. But that's going to be the slowest response you're going to get from that contractor. They get to it when they get to it. And if they're busy, there's no law saying they have to respond to you within 24 hours or something like that. But if you're buying a house and the contractor doesn't get his money until you go to closing and sign that paperwork, that is the best time to tell them, "Hey, I want this, and this done." And so I do a lot of home inspections for new construction in the state of Mississippi. In order to be able to inspect a new home, you have to have a contractor's license. You have to have a special designation. It's not the same here in Louisiana, but that's the laws over there in Mississippi. Not every home inspector went through that process to be able to do that. So I'm one of a few home inspectors on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that can inspect newly constructed homes. So that's about half of the inspections that I do. And I highly recommend it. I did have one client one time. When I got there, the wife was so nervous. It's like a $400,000 house they're buying, brand new construction. And she's like, "I wanted you to come because I want a home inspection. I want to know what's going on." And she said, "I'm going to be honest, my husband," and he's standing right there. She said, "My husband said it's a waste of $400. I don't even know why you're here. It's a new construction house." And before we left, he was thanking me. He said, "This is the best $400 I ever spent." One of the things was the air conditioning unit. They installed a float switch. So a float switch on the unit, if water backs up, starts to float, shut the unit down so it won't flood the house. I said, the good news is they installed the float switch. The wires are connected and there's no pipe. It's just hanging from. And I said, but I can't blame the air conditioning guys that they didn't put a drain pipe coming off of the air conditioning unit. I said, because where would they tie it into? The plumbers didn't give them a drain pipe to connect it to. So that was on the plumbers. And that should have been caught long before the sheetrock went up, not when the home inspector's there and you're about to buy a house. The dishwasher wasn't connected. I couldn't test that. And so several little issues like that. There was a loose faucet on the tub upstairs. So new construction, I highly recommend getting an inspection and get it done. Don't just depend on the warranty to cover that.
50 permits didn't catch any of that?
So I'm not going to mention names, but I have noticed in houses where if you're building several hundred houses a week, maybe you have a good relationship with the inspectors and they're not catching every little thing.
Yeah, they're just gonna put
But
their stamp
I'm
on
going to
it
look
real
for
quick.
it when I'm there. Yes, sir.
So staying on the topic of new home construction, do you do pre-drywall construction if the builder will let you?
I have not, because that is not very common down here. If anybody would be interested in that, I'm definitely open to it.
We would do that in Florida.
Yes.
I had to come from
There,
my house.
I watch home inspection videos of people like out of Texas, and they do pre-drywall inspections all the time over there. And there are guys that put videos out on YouTube,
Yep.
and the city inspector's already been there, and they're like, hey, you need to address this, and this.
And
So
it's easier to get the contractor to do something about it when the drywall's still open.
yes, that is the best time. And I'll tell you this, because I hold a contractor's license. I've been doing construction work for years. And it's frustrating when somebody comes behind you and points out something you missed or a mistake you made. But I tell you what, having a fresh set of eyes, having her with me on a home inspection, I love it. I'll walk past something and she'll come by and she'll say, hey, did you get a picture of this? I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
You know, it's like, of course I did, you know.
Just did.
A fresh set of eyes is great to have, so I highly recommend that. And, you know, it's really not all that expensive, to have us come out. Yes, absolutely. You're talking about hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. Yes.
And a good relationship with a home inspector you know, they control their pricing. So if you're funneling them some volume, you know.
Call me. We'll work that out. Like I said, here in this market, there are areas that we do inspections in Louisiana and areas that we do not. Call me, and I'll tell you if it's one area I can help you, or I'll refer you to someone in our franchise that can help. But yeah.
And I mean, I've done it multiple times where before, you know, a lot of times we'll go in and we'll look through the house and we're like, okay, we're going to reno this whole thing. I don't need to get a home inspection. Well, then we've figured out that if we get the home inspection on the front end, then we don't have any surprises on that home inspection on the back end.
Right.
So we can go in while we're opening walls and doing things. We can go ahead and knock out those issues that may pop up on the end.
And here,
For sure.
here's one other thing to think about as well. So as a home inspector, in Louisiana, there's a rule that we follow. If I do a home inspection on a particular home, I do not do any construction work on that home, because that could be, you know, me saying, hey, look, you need a brand new roof. Oh, look, I own a roofing company. I'd be happy to come and replace your roof. And in the same way, if you call a roofer and say, hey, these shingles are looking a little worn, what do you think? Oh, I think you need a whole new roof. Mm-hmm. You know, if you call a plumber, he's going to say, oh, I think the whole house needs to be plumbed. The electrician, well, we need to run wires and fix everything. So if you're calling the individual trades and say, what do you think? They think they need some work, is what they think. By having a home inspector, I'm independent. I'm a third party. I'm just there to observe and make notes. And I've advised a lot of clients. I'd say, look, here's an issue. Is the sink leaking right now? No, it's not. But if it begins to leak, this is going to be probably your primary area you're going to want fixed or replaced. And another thing, when I do a home inspection, because sometimes they get a really long list of things, and I'll tell them, I say, look, nobody says you have to go to the bank, borrow $50,000 and have it done by the end of the weekend. You know, you can budget and schedule different things. So if you know you want to rewire the whole house, then, you know, maybe if there's nothing catching on fire, give it a little bit of time, depending on your situation. If you're trying to sell it soon or rent it, if you got renters in there, you want to protect them and keep them safe. But if it's something where you're living, you're not going to be bothering, you can plan what you want to remodel and how you want to go from there.
And we've also used it as a negotiating tool when, you know, the inspection report comes back from the buyer, like, hey, look, you know, we've dropped our price already. You know, if you want these things done, sure, but we're going to add those prices back to the purchase price. So it just gives you a little room to negotiate with that.
Oh yeah, sometimes they think we carry badges. It's like, well, the inspector said, look, here it is in the
Yeah,
report.
oh yeah,
you know?
believe me, I just
Yeah.
finished fixing all the inspector notes on one, so it was a lot,
Right.
but.
You know, every property I buy usually get an inspection, because I just want to know what am I going to have to fix.
Right.
I'm
Right.
going to get it cheap enough or at a good price that I'm going to I'm buying a house.
Right, what's a couple $100 inspection, right.
Yeah, what's a priority, what can wait,
Yeah.
those things. And then you get, as an investor, you can make those decisions going forward.
Right.
My house inspectors go in there, I can't charge you for this, I can't do a full inspection. So,
Well, and a lot of inspectors, and I've had relationships with one before where, you know, hey, go check this out. I don't want to report.
yeah.
Just go tell me my major areas that are going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a phone conversation. It doesn't take them as much time. That's
Yes.
usually a little discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's the same, but it's possible. It's all about the relationship that you have with your team of people, your CPA, your home inspector, your realtor, you know. The people
Yeah, a
on the team.
4-point roof, air condition, electrical, and plumbing is usually about half the price.
Of
and-
a full report.
Of a full report. And that's the rates that we charge over there in Mississippi at our franchise. I don't know what our competitors are doing. I've heard some people charging over $1,000 for a home inspection.
Ain't getting my business.
It depends on the size of the house and the relationship. And some inspectors, I mean, they're there 4 to 6 hours inspecting that house. And, you know, that's a very thorough.
There's a bunch of variables, yeah.
For sure.
There's a bunch, and it's one of those things. I tell my clients, personally, I do a middle of the road. I'm not going to go in there and inspect and tear this house down from one side to the other, and I'm not going to go over there and fluff over anything and just skip a bunch of stuff either. I'm going to come right there in the middle, because that's where I'm gonna catch most of the people. Now, if you're an investor and you come in, and I know this before I get, not after, but if you tell me before I do the home inspection, say, look, I'm an investor, I want to know everything going on. I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna give you a full list of everything that's like, hey, this just something doesn't look right. Put this on the potential list.
Right.
But that's how I do home inspections. I catch most people right in the middle.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's what you want. Any other questions or concerns or
We get
thoughts?
in touch with you.
Yes, so I think that's the last slide. I don't know if it got added in.
I have that one, but
He may have sent that in a separate file. I don't remember.
Updated. That would be that one.
Yeah, he updated it.
I didn't play the updated one. We went with the old school there. Let's see here. Come on, man. This is the B team. Boom.
There we go, the last page. So, and
Take a
I've got my
picture.
license numbers on there as well. So
You
feel,
said this is the B team?
It's the B team.
I like that.
Yep.
That's funny.
Cole's the man. He's sick, so we're making it work for him.
yeah. Hopefully next month, you'll get to see Cole.
Right.
This like a treat or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's a super
the,
nice guy.
He's the man.
You'll-
He's the
you'll love
president.
it.
So
Yeah.
he's the man.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank y'all so much. Appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you.